It's much appreciated. I'm Sherry Scarborough, President of West Boca Community Council. I know we have a lot of new faces and we have a lot of people on Facebook watching, so I'm going to give you a 2-minute history on the West Boca Community Council.
Microphone? We have a mic?
You can't hear me?
Oh.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
More than 40 years ago, the West Boca Community Council formed in Fran Reich's kitchen. Fran Reich lived in the community at Glades and Lyons Road. And they met and they had a representative from Century Village, from Boca Woods, and a couple other communities. And they gathered to discuss the development that was coming at Lyons and Glades Road, which is now Somerset Shops. At that time, guess what their major concern was? Traffic. Glades Road was 2 lanes, Lyons Road was 2 lanes. Anyways, they worked with the developer to get the best outcome for both the developer and West Boca. And as that continued, then they went on to pipe the dump that was scheduled for West Boca, the airport. They brought the bridge, Palmetto Park ended a power line. They fought to get the bridge into West Boca and Palmetto, and as well as Yamato Road. Then after that, after Fran was done serving as president, Jeff Winnicott took over. Jeff Winnicott, I'm sure you've all seen Judge Winnicott Road. Jeff was passionate about schools. At the time, in the late 90s, Palm Beach County Schools announced that they were going to open a school at 95th Avenue and Glades Road, where Uptown is now, just a few miles from Olympic Heights. Jeff said no. He met with Commissioner Aronson. They worked with Palm Beach County Parks and Recs, and now West Boca High is all the way at the end of Glades where it should be. So after Jeff was elected judge, and I had the privilege to become the president, our next big thing was University Drive. That was coming over the canal from Broward County and bringing approximately 70,000 cars into West Boca in front of our high school and our elementary schools, and in the middle of our communities. We said no. That was probably a 5-year fight that we had prior to legislation to change the county line. Anyways, that's what we do, whether it's traffic, if we need schools, if we need libraries. This library, I'm sure you saw Alan Winnicott's name on the plaque when you came in. Frank Barbieri was instrumental in getting this library here. So those are some of the things that we do. And we continue to work on issues with roads. If you've been to any of our meetings when we've had traffic, I've said over and over again, our traffic issue in West Boca is really a Broward County traffic issue. The cars from Broward are coming up to Glades Road to get on the turnpike. We need a turnpike interchange on Palmetto Park to keep some of the traffic off of Glades. So, Representative Skidmore, thank you. If you could make note of that, I mean, we really need that interchange to help alleviate some of our traffic. So, before we get on to our actual program with the developer and other things that are being built in West Boca, I would like to introduce some of our guests that are here, and feel free if you'd like to give an update. Sorry, I need my glasses. When I started, I was young. I didn't need glasses. Louis Goldberg from Representative Moskowitz's office is here tonight. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Amy Chamberlain, Representative Skidmore's office. Representative Skidmore's here tonight. You got an update or you have anything to...
Sure, I'll be really quick. Next week would have been the first interim committee weeks for the Florida House, but most of them were canceled. The reason that leadership was bringing everyone to Tallahassee was so that we could vote for the next speaker. So it just was kind of fell apart over the last couple of hours. Most of us won't be going now up to Tallahassee and meeting in committee weeks. So that's one less week we have to do our work. We will go back 1 week in October, 2 weeks in November, 2 weeks in December, and then session starts in January because it's an election year. Normally it's March, and in an election year, it's in January. So we are already starting to file our legislation and our appropriations. If you have an idea, if you've ever said, there ought to be a law, and there's something that we can help you with, if you have a nonprofit or an organization that needs funding and is eligible for an appropriation, we can help you with that as well. Amy, as the president introduced, is my district aide. She is in the office every day. Even when we are in Tallahassee, she's here to help you with any of your state agency needs as well. Thank you for allowing me a couple of minutes. We're always here for you if you need us. Thank you.
We also have Robert from Senator Polsky's office. And we have Leslie Schreiber from Palmer County. Leslie. Do you want to speak just for a minute on the expo?
I think I'll just let Lieutenant Fago speak.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'll introduce myself. That's absolutely fine. Good evening. How you doing? I'm Lieutenant DeFago with the Sheriff's Office. I've worked there for the last 17 years. I'm the new executive officer under Captain Dave Moss. Like many of you, I'm a resident of West Boca for the last 38 years. So I'm very intimately familiar with a lot of the issues that are going on out here. Some of you have known me since I was a little kid. Ellen, here you are. And I was about the same height I am now, just a lot younger. So, but let me tell you about this Public Safety Expo. That's going to be Wednesday, November 1st, from 1 to 4 o'clock at the South County Civic Center. If you don't know where that is, that's going to be on Jog Road. It's between Clintmore and Linton. Okay, on the east side. I have these pamphlets. I'm going to hand them out. You guys can take them. Sherry, I'll forward you a copy. If you have a distribution list that you want to email out, that's absolutely fine. So, does anyone have any questions about the Public Safety Expo? They're going to go over a couple topics. Like, I know Leslie's favorite topic is the therapy dogs.
Yeah.
They're there. Everyone likes the dogs. I can tell you that. Volunteers against scams, which is also one of our crime prevention topics. So they'll tell you about suggestions and best practices. We'll educate the public on our newly implemented body-worn camera system. So if you have any questions, so the way this expo is going to consist, it's going to be about a 30 to 45-minute presentation, and then we're going to have a 15 to 20-minute Q&A session with the public. So it's a chance for us to actually talk and familiarize yourselves with the Sheriff's Office. If you have any questions that you ever were afraid to ask or anything you ever want to know, it's a good opportunity to go. And what else? And the biggest topic, traffic. So everyone likes traffic. So, and that's all for me, but
Thank you.
anything true? All right, sounds good. Thank you. I'm going to you.
Marcy Jasmine's here for the Boca Tribune. Welcome back, Marcy.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be back. Thank you.
Thank you. And Captain Moss?
Sure. Real quick, thanks to Lieutenant DeFago. We're very happy to have him out here in West Boca. He's a very good fit. Like he says, he's been here for basically all his life. So, quick update on crime for the area. Someone was just asking about vehicle burglaries. Actually, in West Boca, year to date, we're down 21%, which is very good from last year. And even in residential burglaries, we're down 12%. So we hope to keep that going. Again, any questions you have, the expo is an excellent opportunity to interact with law enforcement and each other in the community and really get a handle on any topics that you may be interested in. So thank you very much. If you have no questions for Lieutenant, I'm sure there's none for me. Thank you, and I'll let you get on.
Next, the portion of tonight's meeting actually is regarding the development going on in West Boca. So I'm going to give a couple updates before I invite GL. Come on. And I forgot before that we're partnering with Nostalgic America for 2 concerts in March of next year. Tribute bands to Elton John, Billy Joel, and Whitney Houston. So when it gets closer, we'll be sending out information on that. And lighting for the pickleball courts in South County Regional Park, they've been approved and they'll be installed by late spring of 2024. Now on the developments, uptown, Whole Foods is going in where Amazon was going in, and that will be open in late 2024. Why it takes so long, I don't know. Shadowwood Shopping Center is sold to national company Edens with a regional office in South Florida. They're going to be redeveloping the shopping center within the next year. The council's going to be meeting with them at the end of the year to see what their plans are. They've asked us for input. So if anybody has any input in what you'd like to see where Shadowwood Plaza is, because I'm sure they'll be tearing down some of the buildings. Tell us what you'd like to see so that we can get that onto the developer. You can email us at wbccemail@gmail.com. Thomas Farm on Clintmore Road in 441 was purchased by Toll Brothers. They're going to be building 70 single-family upscale homes. Publix, everybody's saying they can't believe Publix is putting in another store, and yes they are, Boca Greens. And that is what they're calling a relief store to assist with West Winds and the Reserve Shopping Center. And that is anticipated being open in mid-2025, so not anywhere real close.
So is that going to be where Winn-Dixie was?
I believe that it is. It's where the golf store was, and Denny's, Kids, so right in the center, and I think that's exactly where. And actually, I remember, I lived here when they built that shopping center, and that was a big deal. And last, because in case the meeting ends after Jail has spoken, I want to say that next month's meeting is with the County Property Appraiser's Office. They're going to be here, and they will be giving us the numbers that West Boca pays in taxes. In our property taxes, we're actually going to see what that number is, so we can compare it with Palm Beach County to see what money is actually coming back to West Boca. And as Kevin will explain further, when the developers have to pay for a road or whatever infrastructure, it actually goes to Palm Beach County to decide where that money is spent. So when the developers in West Boca, when they pay to the county, that money has not come back to us. So we're going to be taking a hard look at those numbers in the budgets going forward. So with that being said, I would like to introduce Kevin Rattery, who's going to speak about their development on 441, between 441 and Lyons, what was the Johns Farm, which is next to Olympic Heights and behind Olympic Heights. So, Kevin?
Thank you for the applause. Good evening. I'm Kevin Rattery with GL Homes. I've been with GL 25 years. I handle all of the entitlements for the company, so I take property from lands that we are acquiring or have acquired, and I entitle them through the approval process to allow us to develop them. I'm talking tonight about what we call the Johns West property. So to answer the first question that I will be asked, no, that is not the name of the project. That is just the name that we call it for purposes of entitling it. Why do we call it Johns West? Because we bought two pieces of property from the Johns family, one on the west side of Lyons Road and one on the east side of Lyons Road. So this is an approved project. It has already been through the entitlement process. It's been approved by the county commissioners. It was approved back in January of last year. We did meetings with the community, with West Boca Community Council at the other library on 95th. So if you were at those meetings, Sherry asked me to be here because there's a lot of information flying around the web, and I know you're going to find this surprising, but some of it's not true. So I'm here to kind of go through what the plans are, to dispel some of the information that's been put out there. As I always say, you can have your opinions whether you like it or dislike it, but at least operate from the facts so that we're working there. So let's start with, well, what is the Johns West property? The area in yellow is the Johns West property. It is 259 acres in size. Its eastern border is Lyons Road. We are directly south of Olympic Heights High School along Lyons Road. When I refer to the Johns East property, that's the Johns East property right on the other side of Lyons Road. This is the Johns West site. Our western border is State Road 7. One of the pieces of information that's out there that's inaccurate relates to 95th Avenue South, which is where the other library was that we presented a couple of years ago. Shadowwood Plaza that Sherry just mentioned is on our southwest corner, and then Boca Fontana is on our north corner. So again, this is an approved piece of property, but I like to kind of explain how land use and zoning work, because I think it's helpful to people to understand what property rights are and what land use and zoning are. So when we look at a piece of property, the first thing that we look at is what's called the adopted land use plan designation, sometimes referred to as the future land use. The county adopts, and all local governments in Florida adopt a comprehensive plan. As part of that comprehensive plan, they are required to adopt what's called a future land use map. What properties are allowed to develop residentially? What properties are allowed to develop commercially? What properties are allowed to develop industrially? When it comes to Palm Beach County, this is the adopted future land use map that affects the Johns West property. And if you see that little LR3 right there, that means the property is designated low residential 3, which is up to 3 units an acre as a planned unit development. And I'm going to explain that a little bit more detail in a minute, but that's what that LR3 stands for. The school right there, Olympic Heights, is designated INST, which is institutional. Shadowwood Square, CH3 right there, which is commercial high with an underlying residential designation of 3. So this becomes the base map that establishes the potential development of that property in accordance with the comprehensive plan. So what does that mean? Well, as I mentioned earlier, we've got a piece of property that's 259 acres in size, and we're allowed up to 3 units an acre. That means that under the, went the wrong way, under the land use designation, we could ask the county commission permission to build up to 779 units, which is 259 times 3, gets you to that number. And then each single-family detached house generates 10 trips per day, which is 7,790 trips. Anybody here heard the term workforce housing? Okay. So workforce housing is another entitlement that the county puts on property that allows a developer to come in and request a density bonus in exchange for the provision of workforce housing. There are 2 programs, what's called 50% limited density. So if we were to apply for limited density, we would be entitled to ask up to 1,167 units. That would be the corresponding number of trips. You can actually double your permitted density, so you go from 3 to 6, and that would be 1,557 homes. So what are we entitled for? What did we ask for? What did the commission approve? 679. So we are below the adopted land use plan designation, although we are required to have workforce housing that is built into the existing approval. We're doing 26 units off-site with what's called an exchange builder. So another builder in eastern Lake Worth is picking up that obligation to build those homes there. So this is the BCC approved, what I'm going to call conceptual site plan. It's really in the form of a bubble plan, which is what that is, but that bubble plan is based on this. For those of you that were involved with the original hearings, there was a big point of contention related to 95th Avenue, right here. And for those of you that were involved, you may recall that the county traffic division wanted GL to modify our plan of development to not only have access on Lyons Road here and State Road 7 here, but also have another vehicular connection right here to connect the community down 95th to Glades Road. The area residents objected, the West Boca Community Council objected. So what we did was we did 2 plans of development. We did a plan with the access to 95th and a plan without the access to 95th. So when it went to the county commissioners had the option to say, we want it or we don't want it. They agreed with the community, they agreed with West Boca Community Council, and the plan to require us to access 95th was thrown away. Somebody at the meeting, when we were discussing the two plans of development, took a picture of this plan showing 95th and has put that back out there and said, GL's proposing an access on 95th. No, we're not. This was the old plan with the either or option. What's approved by the county is that plan of development right there, and there is no access to 95th. We are not proposing access to 95th. We are not connecting to 95th. We are required to have a pedestrian interconnect so our residents can come down 95th, but we have no vehicular interconnect, which was the issue of the community. Second thing that's out there is, you may have noticed on your trips on Lyons Road that we put up some wood framing along that entry. And everybody thinks that's our entry sign. No, it's not. We do that on every single one of our communities. We do that so that we can create scale. We're looking at what our entry feature is going to look like in terms of size, massing, location. We also know how to spell, okay? We know how to spell project. We're doing that because we have to put the letters up there to get an idea of how the letters will look for the name of the project. No, I'm not going to tell you the name of the project. Okay, what I will tell you, which is the same thing I told you in January of 2022, is this is going to be a continuation of our Lotus series. So Lotus in Boca on Lyons Road, West Boca and Lyons Road, just south of the bridges, just east of Boca bridges, and Lotus Palm, which is the old City of Boca Raton Municipal Golf Course. It is now Lotus Palm. You go up Golf Course Road, everybody know where I'm talking about? Blades Road, you can see it. So, why is GL doing this as a Lotus Palm? Well, as many of you that have heard me talk over the years know, we have several series of homes that we build in. We build in Valencias, we build in family. Valencias are our adult, senior restricted. Our family are Lotus, Boca Bridges type communities. We are selling Lotus Palm 36 sales per month. Okay? To give you a reference point, we have sold 256 houses this year alone in Lotus Palm out of the 525. We opened for sales August 11th of 2022, and we have sold 456 of those homes. Okay? So for those of you that are listening to the news saying there's no housing demand out there, I think this project proves that is not accurate. So this will be a Lotus Palm community. It's not going to be called Lotus Palm. It's not going to be called Lotus, but it will be a continuation of those. When the company makes a decision about what the name is, we don't release that to the public till we've secured all of the naming rights to that, because if I were to tell you tonight what the name is before I get out of here, somebody will have registered that name, that domain name, and then that project name is no longer available to us. So my apologies for not telling you. I don't even know. We haven't even decided yet, okay? But Lotus Palm has obviously been a very successful community. If you've been up there and you happen to have seen the entry at Lotus Palm or the entry at Lotus, we carry those themes forward with our project. So I'm going to come back to that. Yes, you are getting an advanced look of our conceptual entry for Lyons Road to this project. This is the south side of the entry, so you're looking at Lyons Road here. State Road 7 will be over here. This is the north side of the entry. For those of you that haven't been to Lotus Palm, please take a drive up because it'll give you an idea of scale. But this is a continuous water feature all along here. It has a black underlying surface. These are bubblers that shoot water up, and all of that water cascades down. In the center, where these darker element or the lighter elements are, that's stone, okay? And the water cascades from inside these structures down the backside of these trees that are in this structure, comes down and goes down, and it will go under the project name. Okay? Just reference of scale and size and magnitude. For those of you that know GL Homes, you know we spend a considerable amount of money on our entries and our landscaping and our recreation elements of the communities. Lotus Palm is around a $6 million entry feature, just the features. Okay? So we expect with this type of feature, with the guardhouse right here, this is somewhere in the $8 to $10 million range of entry features. So hope you like it. I'm sure by the time I get home tonight, it'll be on the web. So whoever's doing that, you shouldn't be doing that. Yes, ma'am.
There's one thing wrong with that picture. Can you see what it is? There are only 5 cars on Lions Road. And you're adding 679 cars every day, basically, to Lions Road, which is unbelievable now.
I'll get to traffic in a minute.
Okay.
Okay? So anyway, this is the design feature of the entry. I'm going to go back to this plan. If you can see that number right there, 655. As I've mentioned previously, as we go through our communities, we look at our product, we look at what's selling in our existing communities, we adjust the plans as necessary. Everything's still detached homes, but right now our plan of development is right around 655 homes on this instead of the 679. Okay? Yes, ma'am. It's gated on both sides. State Road 7 and Blades Road. Lions Road.
What's the range of sales price?
Well, hasn't been set yet, but just by reference point, Lotus Palm is starting at $1.2 million. So, okay, let's talk about traffic. Let's talk about traffic. Okay, I'm going to give you traffic from the developer's perspective, okay? And I'm going to give you an understanding of what we have to go through relative to approvals. I'm going to use 2 phrases for you: concurrency and proportionate share. Those are the 2 phrases, okay? Prior to 2011, Palm Beach County's approval system, when developers came in to entitle property, their approval system was under a type of approval called concurrency.
Right.
And what that meant was when a developer brought in a project, they had to take their project and the projected traffic of that project, they had to distribute that traffic out onto the roadway network. So many cars going this way, so many cars going that way. They had to layer in is what's called background traffic, existing traffic. So every time you run over those black little things in the road, that's existing traffic. They had to layer in what's called approved traffic, projects that had been approved but had not yet been built, and then they had to layer in their traffic on top of that. If the road or a road within that distribution was over capacity, the builder had to widen the road. So I'm going to throw a couple numbers out at you. Just bear with me for a second, and I apologize. But let's just assume for a second a 2-lane road handles 13,100 trips per day. If the developer caused that road to go from 13,100 trips a day to 13,102 trips a day, they were required to take that 2-lane road to a 4-lane road. They could take impact fee credits, topic of discussion in a few minutes. They could take their impact fees and use their impact fees to cover the cost of that road. Now, that system has some good things with it and some bad things with it. The good thing with it was the road got widened. Developers widened the roads. GL built Woolbright Road between Jog and Hagen. We built Boynton Beach Boulevard from the Turnpike west. We built Lyons Road with a consortium north of Boynton Beach Boulevard up to Hyperluxor Road. We built portions of Lyons Road. So that system required the first developer in to widen the road. Now, in 2011, that law was changed, in the state of Florida. A law was passed called proportionate share. And proportionate share basically says it's not fair to the first developer we're in to have to take a 2-lane road to a 4-lane road when they have this much of the capacity that they put on the road, and the road's got this much capacity. So they adopted proportionate share, which basically was the developer pays their proportionate share for the cost of taking that road from the 2-lane to the 4-lane, in my example. Those dollars go to Palm Beach County. Palm Beach County uses those funds to do roadway improvements. Those roadway improvements are not required to be done immediate to the project. They're within a zone. It's called an impact fee zone, and the county can use those dollars to do improvements within that impact fee zone. Now, I can sit here and I can argue both ways as to which system worked or didn't work. And I guess the point I'm trying to make is it's irrelevant because the law of the land is proportionate share. So the developers are meeting their legal requirement to pay their proportionate share for the roadway impacts that they're creating. I'm not disputing that roads have a lot of traffic on them, but you have to marry those concepts with what does the law require the developer to do, what is the right of the property owner as a property right interest, and you have to marry all of those concepts. So in this particular case, this project had to go through the approval process. It was required to get an affirmative determination from the county that it met traffic. It was required to do its proportionate share agreement, and it was required to pay its required proportionate share. Whether you like it or dislike it, I guess at the end of the day, that's what the law is, and that's what the developers have to operate from. We have gone above and beyond proportionate share in certain things. For those of you that know bridges and Boca bridges and GL, if you've been up that road, went ahead and widened Lyons Road from 2 lanes to 4 lanes in front of those projects. We went ahead and did it and striped them off because we knew the county would be coming right behind us to build that 4-lane section, and we didn't want the county building a 4-lane section right in front of our active projects. So we've done things like that. So I understand your concern. I have to express it in the context of we're following what the law requires us to follow, and that's what we operate under. So let me just kind of finish up in terms of the overall project. You've seen the entry. There is a civic pod on the west side. I'm going to go back to the plan. I want to apologize. Oop. Right here. We are required when we go through an approval process to give 2% of our property to the county for what they call civic purposes. That can be in the form of governmental services, fire rescue stations, police substations. It can be as elaborate as governmental service facilities, governmental buildings. The county sometimes allows the builder to cash out that obligation. In this particular case, the county wanted that civic site. Their plan right now, as of now, is that's a future fire rescue station site right there on the west side of the project. So we have to build the bridge that comes, if there's a big canal on the east side of State Road 7, we have to build the bridge crossing over the canal, and then we have to provide that civic site and access to that site. Okay? So the last thing I want to mention, because this gets brought up a lot, and I just want people to kind of understand the concept of traffic, because you hear people say, what we really need is mixed use. What we really need is that integration of residential development with non-residential development so that the folks that live there don't have to get in their car and drive to go to the grocery store. Okay? You need to understand what that really means in terms of traffic. Yes, the folks that live there have the ability to go from their unit down to the grocery store. Uptown Boca is a perfect example. They can live in their unit, they can go to the grocery store when it finally opens, they can go to REI, they can go to Lucky Dog, they don't have to get in their car. That's a trip that doesn't exist. I don't live in Uptown Boca. I go to REI all the time. I'm a a trip. That trip is coming from somewhere else, and it's going to that shopping center. So, just by way of an example, everything really is based on what's called PM trips. How many trips are occurring in the evening during rush hour? The threshold right now for PM trips for 679 homes is 639. If I built 6 units an acre and 150,000 square feet of retail, that 639 goes to 1,050. That's a 64% increase in traffic. Why? Because other people that don't live there are getting in their car and they're driving to that center. I'm not arguing that they don't have internal capture. They do. They also generate a lot of external trips. And you guys know it because you've been to that shopping center. You know what it's like to go to Chick-fil-A. So take that and go to 18 units an acre, which, by the way, the residential that's there is over 18 units an acre. And you build 300,000 square feet of commercial retail. Look at your PM trips. Those are external trips that are new to that network that are coming to that center. So you have to be careful. It's a nice planning buzzword about mixed use and internal capture and all of those things, but it's also a reality that those generate external trips. The Kevin Rattery that goes to REI from his place on the east side of the turnpike, okay? I'm going to that shopping center. I wouldn't be going there if it wasn't for the REI. So just be careful with that. There are certainly places, times and places, but people, what we need is more mixed use. We need that internal capture. Just be careful with that because for practical purposes, there's a lot of internal capture. Yes, ma'am.
Have they decided approximately how many cars are in and out of Olympic High? Because it's one of the biggest high schools in the region. And that's daily, and then at 2 o'clock it slows down to 20 miles an hour. And people are picking up their kids or kids are driving. How many cars have they
well, that's part of, I can't tell you what the number is off top of my head. I can tell you that all of that's in the background traffic that the traffic engineers have to look at. They've got all that from the county. But I just, again, I want you to understand, look at, I'm going to do it from the site plan. This is a little easier to see, okay? Here's Olympic Heights right here. So we've got development all along our south side. We've got development along our east side, and we've got development all along our north side, and then there's State Road 7. Where else did you want us to come in and out at? Yeah. Well, that,
It's done. But it seems to have one road in and one road out on Lyons. And then there's only one road, what's the other street there?
State Road 7.
Right. Lyons is going to be impossible.
Ma'am, I understand this, but you're asking me a question that's impossible to deal with because we have a right to develop the property.
Kevin, I want to bounce off that if I could. Something that hasn't been talked about, you've also got the Charleston apartment complex, right, just south of the Johns West project, with the entrance in and out of, once again, same type of question, entrance, or people entering in and out of the Charleston apartment complex, which is their entrance is right next to this new Johns. How is that relationship? And then also, too, is there any talk about a traffic light?
Thank you for the question. So first off, the county uses what's called access management standards, which sets forth the spatial separation between entries of a project. Okay, so right here is the left end to Olympic Heights for the school-age drivers. We suspect probably some teachers because there's a lot of cars in that parking lot. And in the morning, that traffic tends to back up as kids are trying to get in here. Okay? Then you've got the apartment complex to the south. Yeah, and so if you notice, what we've done is we've kind of put our entry kind of right in the middle. And that allowed us to get a left in. So we have a left in. We have a left out, we have a right in, we have a right out. In our development order, we have a condition which requires us to post surety for a traffic signal. So that surety stays in effect for 24 months after the last certificate of occupancy. So after the last home is sold, the county has the surety in place for 24 months after that. During that window, all the people that are living there. They do the traffic counts, and if you meet that warrant, they pick up the phone and they call me and they say, Kevin, you've met the warrant for the traffic signal on Lyons Road. We're going to call the surety, and we respond back, no, just take the design and tell us how much it is, and we give them a check for the cost of that improvement, because one way or the other we're paying for it. Now, the warrants are the key. The county is very protective of warrants. And so what is a warrant? A warrant is a standard. The county's got several standards as it relates to traffic volume. How many cars are coming out in the peak hour? How many cars are coming in the peak hour? How many accidents have occurred? There's multiple different standards. You have to meet that warrant for the signal to be required. And the county's protective of that because they don't want signals every 100 feet up and down roadways, because then you really wouldn't be able to get anywhere because you'd be stopping at signals all the way. So if it meets the warrants, we are required to fund that signal for this project. So there are dollars there for that. Yes, ma'am?
Although the road may have been Lyons Road may have been widened south of Blades Road, the traffic from your development as well as other developments are going to make a severe impact south on lines south of Blades Road, which cannot be widened unless you want to take out some homes and get into all of that kind of stuff. And the congestion of that traffic, trying to avoid the turnpike that's already congested, go down to the Sawgrass, is going to kill the communities around Lyons Road south of Blades. What can you do to help that?
Again, those are standards that are mandated by the county. We have our impact fees, so every permit that we pull, we're required to pay a fee to the county for traffic. The county pools those dollars and they use those dollars for improvements within the zone or the adjacent zone. So my suggestion to you is exactly what Sherry suggested earlier, is you get information from the county about how much residential traffic impact fees have been generated in this zone, and see how the county is deciding to allocate those dollars for improvements. That would be my suggestion. Yes, ma'am.
I know that certain times of the evening on both entrances to Century Village, traffic is backed all the way up. How far in are you putting your gatehouse?
Okay, so I hope you understand the answer to this question in the context of the way I'm going to initially respond. Century Village was built eons ago. And eons ago, there were different standards in place for what's called stacking, okay? And all that means is how much room exists between where you get off the road and where somebody stops at a gate to provide their information to whoever's at the gate, and depending on how many people are there all at the same time, they all stack behind each other, okay? Our entries to our communities, if you see that, the standard is around 150 feet, which is around right there. We are well past that. So we have not experienced a stacking issue where our cars have been stacking out in the roads, because we tend to build our entries a little farther back so that they're, again, I don't live in Century Village, so.
No, I live in Valencia Reserve, and I can tell you that especially Jewish holidays, backed all the way up on Lyons Road.
And so, those are things that the community can tell the guard, okay, during these periods of times, open the gate. But we generally have taken our time to make sure that we are giving enough, we're far in excess of the county standard. Yes, sir.
And I know you're primarily here for John's West, but could you just briefly say, is there a time frame when John's East and John's West will both be up and running and fully functional?
So John's East, we just submitted for the approvals for that. At the earliest it would be a public hearing is going to be January. As I've told Sherry, we kind of have a routine with the way we do this. We submit the project, we get the first round of comments from the county staff, so we know what we're dealing with. Like, for instance, in that particular issue, the county is asking us to explore a secondary entry on Lyons Road, so 2 entries on Lyons
Is
Road.
that you guys that's doing the road work now at the entrance into what used to be the golf course?
No, that's a different community, that's Lotus Palm.
Okay.
That's Lotus Palm, that's fully approved, and it's basically sold out, so that's a different product. That's GL.
Kevin?
Yes?
I have a question about work site safety. As you've mentioned many times, it's adjacent to Olympic Heights High School, and I know the kids walk right by your site every day. Is there any requirement that that work site be fenced in, and are there any requirements that there be no trespassing signs placed? And I'm also concerned about what happened with all that wood that was put up and then has been taken down. Can you give us some information about what that was all about? Why was it taken down? I assume it has something to do with weather, but I'd like to hear an official, we're the community, we'd like to know. We now have an eyesore. What happened there?
Okay, well, you don't have an eyesore now because the wood was taken down. And the reason the wood was put up was so that we could do scale. Okay? I said that earlier. We put that up. We don't go out and build an $8 million entry to look at it and go, yeah, nah, tear it down and start again. So we put up this basically 2x4 wood element to give us an idea of scale. So the executive team goes out, they look at it, they say, yeah, we like the scale, or no, we want you to do this or that, and then once we're done, we take it down. And it's been taken out.
But given that it's hurricane season, do you think that was prudent?
So respectfully, and I say this respectfully, had there been a hurricane, we would have been out there and we would have taken that wood down. Okay? We've been building in this community.
And fencing?
We've been building in this community for years.
Safety
You
fencing?
know that. Yes, we put up safety fencing with our project. We put up safety fencing with our project.
I haven't seen it.
Okay, it hasn't started yet.
The work has started.
The scale model of the entry, the scale of the entry was put up. We haven't started doing homes out there or building a model row or doing anything like that. Okay?
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. I'm sorry. Didn't see it. You had your hand up the whole time. I didn't see it.
I just put it up.
Was that a demerit from the office?
I have a question as it pertains to the schools in the area and how a project of this size will affect the existing schools and enrollment. I know that the 2 high schools that are in Representative Skidmore's district, and Olympic Heights and West Boca, they're pretty full.
So, again, the answer fundamentally is, sorry to say this, but schools are not unlike traffic. They follow basically a concurrency mandate. So the way the Palm Beach County School District operates, which is the way the legislature required the law to be, was you look at the school that you're in. If the school is over capacity, you look at the surrounding schools for capacity. So there's not a capacity issue using the adopted standard for Palm Beach County. What we have found, however, is that in this price range, there is a good proportion of the students that are going to private school versus public school. But in reference to that point, just so everybody understands, everybody knows where Sunrise Park Elementary School is. Everybody knows where Eagle Landing Elementary School is. Does everybody know where Canyon District Middle School is? Does everybody know where the elementary school is? Sunset Palms? Thank you, got it. Sunset Palms, everybody know where those are? Okay, they're all on land that was given by GL Homes to the school district for free. What I mean by free is, I mean free. We did not take impact fee credits for it. We conveyed the land to the school district. I think we have shown time and time again in this community that we are a community builder. And we look to do things to help the community as we build. Those school sites are a perfect example. Yes, ma'am.
To clarify, when will road sites be finished to Western?
There's been no decision yet about when to start John's West. Not to be called John's West, but John's West. No decision yet. My guess is sometime beginning of next year, we will make the decision to open up for sales, but we haven't made a definitive decision yet. The piece on the east side is a little later on because it's just starting the approval process. So that will have to go through. I'll have to come back out here, present that project, but again, the whole get some ideas of comments from staff. So we're looking at the plan that's going to be part of the record. Yes, ma'am?
Yes, respectfully to you, I know you don't make up the pricing, but you just said you're looking to help the community. And in that regard, why are the homes starting at 1.2 million?
Well, good question, thank you. A lot of that has to do with land price. A lot of that has to do with the cost for materials. A lot of that has to do with the infrastructure that has to be put in with the project. So let's talk about what GL Homes has been doing. And no, I'm not going to talk about the swap, okay? But what I am going to say is that each one of these projects has a workforce housing obligation. We have met our workforce housing obligation by utilizing the exchange, so those units have been built elsewhere in the community, so there are units that are workforce housing. The project on the east side of Lyons Road, we are proposing that to be attached condos so that the pricing structure is lower than where we are with our single-family homes. Yes? Not yet. Not yet. I appreciate the question. Thank you for the question. But the whole idea of that project going to attached on the east side was so that we would be a little different pricing structure, a little lower pricing structure.
My perception, correct me if I'm wrong, but part of the signature of GL Homes is to have lakes, and the homes that are on those lakes are waterfront property, and they're a little bit more in cost, correct? And is there a percentage, like they're generally 10% more, 15% more, 20% more?
Okay, so good question. We're kind of known as what's called a lakey community. So instead of building 1,500 homes out here, we came in lower so that we had a good percentage of our homes. I can't remember the exact number, so I apologize, but it was somewhere in the 75% to 80% of the homes in this community either abutted up against water or they abutted up against a perimeter buffer. What you're referring to is what's called a lot premium. Yes, we charge a lot premium for those houses. The pricing structure of that can go anywhere from $5,000 up to, I think they've been in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, depending on how big the lot is and how big the lake is that's adjoining it. But yes, we do lot premiums associated with that. Yes.
On your two arrows,
Yes, sir.
you're going to have traffic left turns in, left turns out, both sides.
Yes.
How are you going to control that with traffic being such a mess as it is today?
So, as I like to say, people find their way. And so this is a full median opening, so this is left in, left out, right in, right out. And this also is a left in, left out, right in, right out. So if a signal is not here and people are having a hard time going this way, so they're trying to take a left to go north, which by the way is not probably a movement that's going to happen a lot because you think about in terms of what's north versus what's south. But if somebody is going north, what they can do is go through the community, go out to State Road 7, and then they're taking a right versus taking a left through oncoming traffic. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Ryrie, I was just wondering, with these new communities going up, I, being a resident of Boca Bridges, didn't have the lottery in order to purchase a property. Are these new properties going to have the lottery system? Me personally, in Boca Bridges didn't have that. Will these have that?
So that decision's not made by me. So the answer is I don't know. But typically what happens is, as you probably well know, we announce on our website that the community is going to be open, when it's going to be open, and people can pre-register to be part of the opening day process. And then depending on the number of people that pre-register, that's when that decision's made. Because, what we don't want to do is go back to the days of old, which when I was a teenager that involved camping out at the local Turtles Records in the store to buy concert tickets. But, years past when I was at GL, we would open up and it would be first come, first serve. So we'd have people out camping on the road next door, and we don't want to go back to that. So, yeah. Yes.
I read the PUD plan for this site, and it said that the vast majority of the homes are so-called zero lot line.
Yes.
Now, I'm not really a real estate person, but I did a little research. And from what I've read, that means that each home is butt up almost barely with an alleyway. Can you explain what is this concept of zero lot line, and is this a good thing, a bad thing, and why are some of the homes not zero lot line?
Okay, so just for reference point, what was just asked was zero lot lines, but I'm going to do all of them just so everybody's got a reference point. When it comes to residential development, there are apartment buildings. Everybody knows what an apartment building is, right? You lease space from an owner. Typically, they're 2 to 3 story tall buildings. Typically, they're built anywhere from 18 units an acre up to 50 units an acre. Then you have condos. Condos are attached product. They look kind of like a townhome, but you don't own the land underneath the building that you live in. You just own the building that you live in. Then you have townhomes, which are kind of like a condo, except for you own the land that your building sits on. Then you have zero lot line, and then you have single family detached. So apartments, condos, townhomes, zero lot line, single family. Single family are the largest lots. They require 7.5-foot setbacks on both sides of the house, so the houses are 15 feet apart from each other, side to side. Everybody got that? A zero lot line is also a detached house. Its setbacks are 0 feet on one side and 10 feet on the other side. So you have 10 feet of separation between each house. Does everybody understand how we got there? On a single family, you're 15 feet of separation between each house, 7.5 and 7.5. Okay? They're both detached product. It's just a different style of development. Frankly, most of the single family development that's occurring in Palm Beach County over the last 15 years or so has been zero lot line because they are, land is so expensive, infrastructure is so expensive, so that's a way of getting there. Now the alternative, just so everybody thinks their way through that, is you go higher, you don't go lower. You go higher, and so you start doing townhomes, which means you're building more units and you're putting more traffic on the road. So those are, you kind of have to kind of marry those two concepts together when you think your way through that. But the Lotus is primarily, actually Lotus is 100% zero lot line. Lotus Palm is 100% zero lot line. Boca Bridges and Seven Bridges have both zero lot line and single family in the same community. You good?
I'm great.
All right.
Thank you,
You're going to have a quiz on this when I'm done.
Kevin, 2 questions. First, the site that you said was designated for fire and rescue. Mm-hmm. Is that finalized or is that proposed?
So this is the way the county operates, and I don't make the decisions for the county. So what the county does when we come in for an approval, that 2% rule kicks in. And we're required to show that 2% on the plan. And then the county will send out, the property and real estate department of the county will send out a notice to all the county departments. And they're saying, we got a PUD that came in. It's north of Glades Road between Lyons and State Road 7. Does anybody have a need for a civic site in this location? And if somebody says, yes, we have a need for that civic site, then they come back to us and say, we need you to hold that civic site. We don't want to cash out that civic site. And in this particular case, Fire Rescue has indicated their desire to have another station in this location. Does that mean that there's going to be a station there next year or the year after that? No. But what it does mean is that the county has the land so that when they do need the station. Has anybody seen the station that's up by Valencia Sound, Flavor Picked and Lyons Road?
Yeah, I worked at that station.
Okay, you worked that station. Well,
I actually worked at a 53 too.
On the other side. Yeah.
That's a relatively new station, such that 53.
Yes.
I worked it out. So they put another new one real right close there to it.
How did I start? I don't make the decisions for the county. The county has to make those decisions about where and when and all that other stuff. So that's their purview. They're the experts. They figure that out based on response time, traffic movement, all of those things that you well know. So they make that decision. But that station at Flavor Picked and Lyons is a site that GL dedicated
if the development is complete, except for that parcel, what happens to that parcel in the interim?
So we convey it to the county, and the county just simply holds that property until they have a user that's ready to go online. So by way of example, the one at Flavor Picton Lions, we dedicated that to the county a couple years ago. Kind of sat there for a year and a half, 2 years. And so eventually the county came in. I think what they're doing is actually putting a temporary station in while they're building the permanent station, which I have not seen them do before.
And what's going on with the recreational land there? Can you tell us a little bit about
Yeah, so this is about a 8.7 acre recreation parcel. This is kind of where GL's bread and butter is in terms of our entries and our landscaping and our recreation amenities. So this will be a highly amenitized clubhouse with resort pool, lap pool, probably indoor basketball, all of it. Lately we've been doing pickleball. Yes, pickleball.
Softball question, what does GL stand for?
Who said it?
Good luck.
I knew the answer, but I wanted
Oh, you were trying to see if I knew the answer.
I want the people screaming it. Tell them again. Good luck.
There's no traffic light until that will be determined by the county.
Yes. Yes, sir.
How many square feet of air is room built in this complex? Approximately. I have a reason to ask you.
So I made it easy on myself. I pulled Lotus Palm. So our smallest home in Lotus Palm is a 3-bedroom, 3-bath, 3-car garage, 2573 under air. Starts at 1.349.
I'm asking the question, is that kind of those size homes, you've got probably 4 and 5 people family, and you probably have 5 cars, and that's pretty much 3,000 new cars in that immediate district, of traffic.
So it's an interesting question, and I like to kind of respond this way, and that is, the question was, these are big homes, so is it possible you're going to have 4, 5, 6 people living there because they have 4, 5, 6 bedrooms? And the answer is, it's possible, but let's just talk about the reality of what we see in the marketplace, and that is in a family community, and this will be a family community. You typically have your single or double parent, and then you have on average 2 kids. Those kids are driving from 16 to 18, and then they're going off to college. So that driver's no longer there. So the 10 trips per day, which is the standard that I mentioned a lot earlier in the presentation, that is based on what's called the ITE, Institute of Traffic Engineers, and that's where nationally all the traffic engineers study these developments time and time again, and they figure out what's the average number of trips that are coming from them. So we know an adult community is generating less trips than a family community because they're not going to work in the morning, and they're typically, their recreation amenities are provided in the clubhouse. They go to the clubhouse to play cards or go to the pool or do that type of stuff, so they don't go to, but 10 trips per day, I think it's like 9.8, 9.9 trips per day is like the standard as it is now, but that 10 trip per day has been that way for a very long time. So that's a pretty good known estimate of what it's going to be. Can you have an anomaly? The answer is yes, but for practical purposes, most of these communities have been well documented. There's around 10 trips per day per home. Yes, sir.
Looking at the map, those lakes look very small. What happens in periods of heavy rains? Will the water flow out to the canals in a timely fashion, or can they create flooding?
Okay, good question, so thank you. So let's talk about what it is today, what it was before GL closed on the property, which was an active farm field, and let's compare it to what's being developed on the property. So everybody think logically. When it rains really heavy, what does a farmer do? They discharge their water as fast as they can into the adjoining canals. So there's the L44 canal right there, part of the Lake Worth Drainage District. That farmer has only one job and one job only, which is to get that water off his property so it doesn't damage his crops. I don't blame him one iota. Okay? So they're taking that, what I call untreated water, water that's fallen on the ground, and they are discharging it into the adjoining canal. So whatever pesticides, fertilizers, whatever else that they've put associated with the growing of the crop, that's collecting with that water, it's discharging into the adjoining canal. Residential development, on the other hand, has to retain that water 80%. What that means is when water falls inside that site, we've got to hold 80% of that water in our lake system for what's called a duration period. Okay? So we have to hold that water, and in those lakes you have littoral plantings, the plants that are grown on the shoreline. And the whole purpose of those littoral plantings is to filter that water. So do you have pesticides and herbicides that are used with keeping grass and landscape here? Yes, of course you do. But the whole idea is that water is going and it's being stored in the lakes. So instead of it hitting the land and going right out into the canal, which was the pre-development scenario, it's now post-development. So that water is going into this system. Now, when the water reaches a certain point, now let me explain something too, sorry, it's technical, but all of these lakes are interconnected. So what that means is that lake right there has a pipe that connects it to that lake, and that lake is connected to that lake, and that lake's connected to that lake. So if you have heavy rain, that water can get all the way through the project into the lake, so the lakes can go up equally. So you don't have a lake on the east side filling all the way up, and a lake on the west side sitting there with no water because of the way it happened to rain. We get strange occurrences here. So all of these lakes are interconnected. They're set by basically a discharge structure. So once that water reaches a certain point, then and only then can the project discharge the water into that adjoining canal. So residential development actually holds more water than farming does. And I know somebody's going to say, yeah, but there's all of that concrete and pavement and all of those things, but there's none of those lakes. So here's something that most people don't understand. Residential communities built to today's standard, which is the 100-year storm, South Florida Water Management District criteria, they're designed to fill up the lakes. They're designed for those lakes to go beyond the lake bank. They're actually designed so that the roads can take the water. But what are they also doing? Keeping the water out of the home. That's goal number one. Keep the water out of the house. So communities will, people will say flood, but they're actually designed that way. They're designed to hold that water and reach a stage where it doesn't go into the home and then discharges into the adjoining canals. I know I'm seeing yawning, so I'm doing the best I can. I can't do puppet tricks or anything up here, so.
With all these new homes and EV cars and everything, how's everything else infrastructure? How's FP&L's infrastructure going to handle this?
So FPL.
Is that going to be a burden on the rest?
No, FPL, the one thing that happens with all of these communities is we have to loop systems. So the good thing is with power and things like that, we have to loop the system into the adjoining projects. So by way of an example, at Lotus Palm, we had budded Brentwood. So I used water as an example. Brentwood was fed by one pipe coming in from State Road 7. If that pipe burst, Brentwood has no water until that pipe is fixed. We, because we abut up against them, interconnected to the other side of the project, so if their pipe burst on State Road 7, water can be fed up through our pipes up to them. So development does interconnect those infrastructure elements and makes them actually sounder, not less sound. Hope that answers your question.
Sure.
I saw that.
Kevin, thank you. Zoom. And again, next month's meeting is with the property appraiser. She'll be here, she'll be giving us the numbers, like I said earlier, on how much we are paying in taxes in West Boca and what is coming back to us. And what we can expect, as Kevin said, on where the developers are paying, the impact fees, what is really coming back to us in West Boca? I ask you, all this development that has gone on, our roads aren't getting wide. We need red lights. We need signage out here. We're not even getting our roads striped most of the time. You'll see a lot of, not a lot, you'll see some signs that say your penny sales tax at work. What about the taxes that we pay every single year? What's coming back to us? So we're going to find that out next month, and we'll be using that information going forward. So again, thank you for coming tonight. I hope to see you all next month. Thank you. Thank you.